Hey everyone, welcome to Strange Stories, where we explore near-death experiences and supernatural stories from people who've had a glimpse of the other side. If you enjoy our content, please consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel. Without further ado, let's get to the story of the day. Story number 1. This is Robbie's experience as described by his mother, Christine. My son doesn't recall the experience itself now that it's been 7 years, but he remembers telling me about it. He'd been airlifted after collapsing at another hospital. His organs were shutting down one by one, causing the next to fail. The organism that caused the harm was not detected, but other testing ruled out every type of sickness from meningitis to Lyme disease. The CDC specialists ruled out everything but toxic shock syndrome, which they could not confirm. This condition was formerly thought to only affect women who use tampons, but it has recently been found to be caught in other ways, such as open wounds and untreated strep throat, as toxic shock is caused by strep bacteria. After much deliberation, the physicians and I agreed to put Robbie on an EKMO. I'm not sure what the initials stand for, but basically it's a machine that takes blood from your body into the machine, oxygenates it, nitrifies it, and then pumps the blood back into your body. It replaces the lungs in the sense that your lungs oxygenate your blood when you breathe, and the heart in the sense that your heart pumps blood into all the veins, organs, and locations where blood is required. According to my understanding, the machine replaces all organs by performing all of their functions. However, the heart does not beat and the lungs do not breathe on this machine. The only thing that is alive in your body is the blood, which keeps everything else inert. I had a vision the night before the conference addressing this possibility. Therefore, I didn't want detailed details about the machine when we really had the meeting. All I cared about was that my baby was okay, and God had promised me that in that vision the night before. So I told the physicians to use their best judgment on the details because it wouldn't change the outcome. They told me that none of his organs would function while he was on the machine and that he would be brain dead, as he had been for some time. He'd been in a coma for 2 months at this point. They estimated that his odds of returning with organs that could function on their own were fewer than 20%, that once the organs have stopped working on their own for an extended period of time, it is extremely difficult to get them to work again. They also warned me that if he did emerge from this machine, his odds of ever being normal were slim and that he might have an irreversible physical or mental impairment. There were extremely few reports of humans escaping from this machine alive, let alone in a normal state. The machine was new at the time, and there had not been enough use of it to provide statistics. They claimed that based on the limited data available, children appear to have fared better than adults. I recall them telling me that it hadn't been tested on many adults yet, or that the results were negative. They claim that few, if any, people have emerged normally from the machine, whether adults or children. All of this information was too much for me to process, and it was bothering me since it felt fruitless and a waste of my time since I had my vision, so I refused to let them explain it to me any further. Even though I'm very interested in it now, it's some of the many miracles my kid was blessed with. These were the difficulties God brought him out of. I told the physicians that I would sign whatever they wanted, that they could use their own discretion, and that he would be fine either way. I granted my okay, and he was placed on the machine for 7 or 9 days. The procedure to attach the machine to the body is perilous in and of itself. It is hooked up to the body through the arteries in your neck and groin, one where the blood is pumped out, the other where it is pumped back in after it has been treated. After that, everything went exactly as planned, and he awoke from his coma approximately a week after the equipment was withdrawn, which I understand is equally as risky as hooking up the machine. He was awake enough a week later to tell me what he saw. He had no idea how to convey his experience, so I tried to comprehend it in his child's words. He didn't tell the order about his encounter, but he did say he saw a dazzling light, a pearly gate made of a single pearl, and an angel named Elizabeth with dark, long, stringy hair, but he couldn't remember her face. He claimed she informed him that his nanny needed and loved him. He is the sole grandchild of both his grandmothers and will most likely always be so. He claimed Elizabeth handed him a gift wrapped in brilliant illuminated paper with a gold bow on it, and when he opened it, it revealed a crystal cross that glowed brightly. Then Elizabeth lifted him up and slung him over her head, while Joseph draped the cross over his head to show Jesus. When I asked him what Jesus looked like, he claimed he couldn't see him since he was holding the cross for him to see. That was all he remembered of the encounter, he added. I told the nurses who had grown connected to Robbie about it. According to one nurse, her and her co-workers' experiences, as well as the experiences of multiple doctors, revealed that several children had seen the same angel named Elizabeth. I read another report about a toddler who had an NDE and saw her. One of the doctors also stated that most people, including children who've seen angels, do not die as a result of the experience that caused them to see the angels, but those who saw Jesus perish. I was worried about this since my kid stated he couldn't recall the angel's face, and I'd heard of NDEs where people couldn't remember Jesus' face. When I asked my son how he knew this was an angel, he simply answered, "I knew." I think I didn't believe him, so I asked him several times over the next 2 weeks until it was clear that I was getting on his nerves about it. He told me several times, "Because I know, Mommy. Understand?" I'm not sure. I didn't want to bother him any longer, so I just left things alone. Then I asked him about it again, but this time I asked him how he knew it wasn't Jesus rather than how he knew it was an angel. Because she had boobies under her gown. Jesus wouldn't have boobies now, would he? He cynically said. He also mentioned that she had a lovely voice. I'm sure he went through more than he was able to tell me at the time. And now that he can better describe the circumstances, he claims he doesn't remember anything. I bring it up occasionally, but I let him decide whether or not to discuss it. I hope my prodding back then didn't cause him to clam up about it. He doesn't seem comfortable when it's brought up, so perhaps he doesn't recall at all. If that's the case, I hope he eventually does. Please let me know if you have any information on this angel named Elizabeth, or any studies on the differing consequences of Jesus NDEs, angel NDEs, or the EKMO. Thank you so much, and may God bless you. Story 2. My first awareness was of opening my eyes when I was lying on the table. The light was the brightest white light I'd ever seen. I figured it was a surgery light, but it was so brilliant that I couldn't see anything else. Nonetheless, the brightness caused no pain in my eyes. I kept my eyes open despite the fact that all I could see was light. I heard voices, one of which was female. She was clearly in a hurry, contacting a doctor on my left side of the head. She was telling him to hurry because we're losing him. I could definitely hear the doctor telling him to hurry as fast as he could. He was not there yet, he kept saying. This went on for almost a minute before the nurse announced that I was leaving. The veins are too flat. I cannot open them, the doctor explained. I recall saying aloud, "Don't worry. Take your time. I do not hurt," since his voice sounded panicked. He didn't appear to notice what I was saying. "It's so flat. It won't open," he kept saying. I didn't feel any pain or pressure, just the light and the stress in their voices, but I felt quite calm. My wife was able to tell me what happened when I woke up 2 days later. The night before the incident, I had vomited large amounts of old, dark red blood. My wife could tell I was sick in the morning, even though I refused to confess it. I refused to go to the doctor's office until my elder son promised to physically take me there. We drove to the doctor's office and walked in. All previous occurrences are only vaguely remembered by me. My wife claims that I passed out right outside the door and was taken to an examination room. They started IV fluids and contacted 911 since I had no pulse or blood pressure. She was not permitted to accompany me to the hospital. She said the doctors would come out every hour or so and tell her I was critically ill, had major blood loss internally, and was in irreversible shock, but that as long as I was alive, they would try different treatments. This is where I discovered that the doctor I'd heard about was a vascular surgeon attempting to access my carotid vein in order to insert a PICC line. It was to begin with massive amounts of fluids, and the ideal location was the neck carotid vein. That began with 4 bags of fluids, about which she was unsure. The room was a cutting-edge critical care unit where I could be operated on as well as receive other treatments. She was only permitted in for brief periods for 2 days, and it took me a while to realize I'd been there for 4 days. I told her what I had seen, heard, and felt. She stated that it was impossible since my eyelids were taped shut and couldn't speak because I was intubated. There was no such light in the room. I asked if I had undergone neck surgery, and this is how I found out what they needed to do. Because I was losing so much blood, my extremities' veins were closing in order to keep blood in my brain. My neck veins were so constricted that it took the surgeon about 30 minutes to open my neck and carotid arteries and allow fluids to flow. The breathing tube was removed on the 3rd day, and I was weaned off the respirator. I couldn't talk as I recalled since the tube was blocking my voice cords. They conducted numerous tests throughout the first 2 days. On the 7th day, I was told that I must have fallen and struck an object, bruising the lower tip of my heart and causing the lower lobe of my liver to hemorrhage. The blood pooled and flowed into my stomach, causing me to puke. The PICC line was removed from my neck the day I was discharged. Then I saw it. It was about 1 foot long and was placed squarely in my heart. While my health has not improved significantly, I am currently being tested for melisma. If I'm diagnosed, I have decided not to undergo chemotherapy. I am in excruciating pain due to many major stenotic regions on my spine that are gradually shutting down my bladder and legs, and I'm semi-incontinent due to loss of sensation. Surprisingly, I'm not terrified. The light, while not ecstatic, was nonetheless one of serenity and harmony. It's already been a year, and I've only recently told my wife that. While my recall of the first day was hazy, the day before, the day of the fall, I definitely remember not falling as they claimed. The bleeding seemed really real, but I'm not sure how it happened. Perhaps that was a foreshadowing of my current predicament. I believe this was an NDE. Nevertheless, I would need additional expert viewpoints to determine whether it qualifies. As an aside, as an adolescent, I was told 3 times that I was on the verge of death, yet I have no recollection of any of these incidents. A fall from a 3-story building when I was 10, being hit and thrown 30 feet by a car as a pedestrian when I was 8, and spinal meningitis when I was 5. I don't feel invincible. None of these events occurred during my time.